I haven't found a place for this thing yet, but I just wanted to show it off to you guys because I've never owned one of these before. Um, this is the Japanese NES. I mean, as you can see, I'm a pretty big fan of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Um, Obviously, this one looks quite a bit different, and that is almost entirely because of marketing. You know, the original NES was designed to look more like a VCR because they thought Nintendo had thought that given the video game crash of the early 80s and people's general dissatisfaction with the industry after Atari and Intellivision and all the Pong consoles flooded the market with trash, they were like, okay, we've got to seem more sophisticated and seem more like a entertainment system, which is why it is also called the Nintendo Entertainment System in the United States, whereas the Japanese console was called the Family Computer System. You know, they associated it more directly with video games. And obviously, the original Nintendo Entertainment System had the games pushed into the front, and you'd have to push them down, which was also part of this marketing choice. It was also a terrible design choice because the pins would wear out over time, and that's actually why, I don't know how well you can see it, but I have a blinking light win installed into this thing, which turns the console into a front loader. And as a result of that, you don't have the wear on the pins over time. The blinking light win also disables region encoding, so for PAL games, which incidentally come in the exact same type of cartridge as these, you can actually run them on this thing with the blinking light win. But Famicom games are a different story. Famicom games have, I don't remember how many pins the connector has, but it's a different size. And I actually have an example of one that I can show you. I have to place my camera down though to pull it out because it's actually in here, and I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. If this this machine here will allow me to do as such. Oh yeah, that's the other thing too about these things. The blinking light win is really fucking tight on the games. So like when I have just a regular Nintendo game on the inside, it works just fine. I can pull it out even though it's a little bit rougher than with the regular system. A little bit. It's a lot rougher to pull them out. But with this adapter, because of the way that the adapter is designed, it's actually pretty fucking difficult to pull it out of the console. So as you can see, this is a My Arcade Famicom to NES adapter. The standard sized Famicom carts fit pretty snugly into it. As you can see, you just put them in, pull them out. It's pretty much interchangeable in this thing. Part of the problem with these things though, you know, one of the drawbacks is that you will not be able to play every Famicom game with this because they come in many different shapes and sizes, and this standard variant is the only one that you can really fit into one of these things. And so the myriad of other Famicom games with expanded graphics and sound capabilities or larger housing just for the sake of it would not be able to fit in this thing. And there then comes in the need for the original console. Of course, this is the only Famicom game that I have, and I've been pretty happily, I've been pretty happily playing it on this thing, but there would come a time when this thing would be more than necessary. Also, mine has the AV mod, so it's not just your standard coaxial signal, which is good because I don't have a TV that actually gets to the channel that you need to reach on this thing. For some reason, on the Famicom, and it might be this way on other Japanese consoles from this era, you have to get to a channel called like 97.5 or some weird thing like that, that you would be able to reach on NTSC-J televisions, but not on the vast majority of NTSC televisions. And so, yeah, you run into some issues there. Having the mod is much better, and thankfully, you know, these end up coming pretty cheap. The mod, the AV mod, was one of the most common console modifications to ever exist, really. You used to be able to get that done pretty easily in Japan. I will say also, not a big fan. Not a big fan of how the controllers were designed on this thing. Like, that My Arcade thing is useful just to use a better controller, right? Yeah, sure, I can't use it on a lot of the games that were for the Famicom, but for the ones that fit in it, hell yeah, I'm going to play them on the NES, because, I mean, look at this. What is going on here? The cord that plugs into the machine comes out the side like this, so you've got to, like, put your hand kind of in it like this and mess with the D-pad while your two fingers are here, or I guess you could hold it like this, but then look at what it's doing. The cord is pressing up against your finger as you're playing. It doesn't make any sense the way that they designed this. Also, the fact that the controllers are actually stuck to the console, like they're not, you can't take them out of the socket and then plug them in again. You just have to have it soldered to your console the entire time, which is really fucking weird. That being said, there were a raft of incredible games on this thing, and a lot of them don't even require that you understand Japanese. And for the ones that do, there are English translations out there that you can apply as a patch to the cartridges if you know how to do repros, which is relatively easy to learn. There's just some soldering involved, and transferring the data to the modules on the thing. You got to do some rudimentary wiring, but all the guides are out there, and they allow you to apply English to the console's games. And so, what with how many fan translations are out there, and how many games that, like, you can pretty easily get through with a guide in English or with no Japanese knowledge whatsoever, I figured it was great to have one of these things, especially because from Japan you can get these things cheap. You know, you can get these things really cheap, even with the AV mod, because, you know, the AV mod was so common. Like, this one I got for like $30. I mean, you can't beat that, right? It didn't have the AC adapter with it, unfortunately. I still need to get one of those. Thankfully, I can get one of those pretty cheaply in America because of the collector scene. But one of the problems it runs into is it needs a transformer. So it needs to to convert up from 100 volts to 120 volts. Because even though Japan uses the exact same plug type as us, and on most modern electronics the voltage issue is not an issue, on the Famicom it is. And on many other old Japanese electronics it is. So Um, Not only do I need to get an AC adapter, I need to get a power converter for this thing if I want to play it, which is not a pressing issue at this time because, like, the only Famicom game I have, I can actually play on that My Arcade converter. But, you know, I'm a collector. I like to have these things. I think it's going to look really nice sitting next to the NES there. I just need to set up a spot for it. Um, and I also think that I'm going to have a lot of fun with it whenever I do have the resources at my disposal to actually get some games for this thing. Um, so I'm happy to see that this is a warm new addition to the OsakaSyndrome game room slash regular room. I still can't get over how short the cords are for this thing. Like, this is like barely. I'm gonna have to sit really close to the TV in order to play on this thing, which is like not great. I think there's like radiation exposure that you run the risk of from doing that, but that's okay. Is what's a little radiation ever harmed anybody? What's it ever done to someone before? Um, I kind of wish that the original Nintendo was designed kind of like this, strictly because it's so much smaller and more compact. Like, look at how much space the NES takes up on this area. That's space that could be utilized by more consoles. But no, this massive behemoth has to take all of it up. Um, Although I also kind of don't wish that they did that because they probably wouldn't have been nearly as successful if they looked like all the other shit that people had been tired of by that point. Man, I wish I knew what that said and what that said. I mean, this is pretty obviously a problem the way this thing is set up. Like these, I can just roll up the cord and boom, I can put these wherever I want. I can store them in a fucking drawer or something. With this thing, it just looks like there's a mess of wires everywhere whenever you're not using it. Like, what were they thinking? And again, the the cord comes out the side of the controller? Like, what? I don't understand. But it's worth it because there are some prime Kino uh, expert level otaku games on here that I know that I'm going to enjoy a lot. Still though, like why'd they have to design it like that? I feel like it's like simultaneously better and worse of a design. Um, it also predates the NES by a couple years. So that could have also been like besides marketing for North America, like part of the reason they designed it this other way could have been them learning from their mistakes after releasing the Famicom. Man, I really want to play on this thing now.